Grace and peace. Welcome to another episode of the TBT Show. I'm Anthony Moten. My partner, as always, is the Right Reverend Elder Sean P. Aguilar. Sean, how are you?
Bless you, man. Better than I deserve. Yes, sir.
Good. I'm excited about our time with you guys every week. This is what, episode 10?
10.
Trucking
10.
right on the line.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah,
Double digits.
10 under our belt.
There you
go. So I'm excited about our time together as always. There's so much going on in our world and our country. And again, our assignment is to speak truth. The TBT show is about truth be told. And so definitely want to do that today. There's a lot of different events that we want to cover today and kind of give some of our commentary about them, some of our insight. Some of them are extremely sad. And the first one is probably one of the saddest. I believe it was June the 27th. The actual event happened June the 27th in Akron, Ohio. 25-year-old Jayland Walker lost his life. There are a lot of different details that are coming out about it. Of course, it was a routine traffic incident, and now their video evidence, they're saying that there was a gunshot heard before they pulled him over, which, according to the police chief in Akron, Ohio, it changed the dynamic of the traffic stop. But Jayland Walker apparently jumps out of his car, tries to flee on foot. 8 officers pursue him, and it culminates with Jayland Walker losing his life. And then just released a couple of days ago, he was actually shot 60 times. 90 rounds fired, and 60 of those rounds hit him in various parts of his body. Now, according to, and before I called it a lie, let me tell you what was said. According to the police chief in Akron, of course, video has yet to be fully released, but he did, cite some still pictures, and he said those still pictures, it appears as though Jayland Walker was going to his waist. It appears as though he was making some motion forward. The cops, in fear of their life, and that's their go-to, they're always scared. They should have been crossing guards, but in fear of their life, they begin to shoot, and that's how he ends up getting hit 60 times with 90 rounds fired from their weapons. So, I mean, that's where we are. Yet another young black man is killed and unarmed, because there was a gun, but it was inside his car, and of course he fled on foot. And so another black man dead while still being unarmed at the hands of police. So again, Sean,
Well, this is sadly becoming an American tradition.
Yeah.
That unarmed black men keep turning up dead when they have an interaction with the police. I can understand when an officer has fear for his life. My concern is that you've gone through hours, days, months, years of training.
Continual training. That we pay for.
You have access and authority. You have access to things that the public doesn't have access to. You have authority over the public. When a police officer says to do something, you're supposed to do it. Without question. Right? But there's never any talk about the responsibility on the other side of the badge. It should not be that the untrained civilian has to demonstrate more restraint than the trained officer.
Right.
So as an untrained civilian, I have to manage my emotions to a greater degree
Right.
than the trained officer.
Right.
Because he can not manage his emotions well, step over the line, injure me, and I've got to accept that he has a tough job.
Right. Maybe had a bad day.
But I don't get to have a bad day.
Right. Right.
People that look like you and I don't get to have bad days.
No.
We don't get to make mistakes.
No. You'll end up dead.
You'll end up dead.
And I, and again, and I know I can see the emails coming now. I know they're coming.
They're coming.
But I'm going to say it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Police officers in this generation, they're a hired gang. And so when this generation talks about defund the police, like, you can't argue it. Like, you're with it. Like, I'm with it now because you see events like this
Mm-hmm.
that keep happening.
Mm-hmm.
So when we say stuff like reform, police reform,
Mm-hmm.
what that means is pouring more money into a system that's already broke.
Mm-hmm.
That's not so. And you talked about all the training that
Mm-hmm.
taxpayers pay for.
Mm-hmm.
You have equipment that
Mm-hmm.
taxpayers pay for, souped up cars.
Mm-hmm.
The best handguns that money could buy. Your vest up. You got, everyone has body cameras and walkie talkies, and we can communicate better. And all of this money, and the end of the day, because you think
Mm-hmm.
someone may have a gun,
Mm-hmm.
he gets 60 rounds.
Right. With this story with Jayland Walker, that's the part that just stands out, that you had 8 officers, 7 white, 1 black, that collectively fired 90 rounds of ammunition at him. 90. That means that they all emptied their clips.
Yeah.
For what started as a routine traffic stop.
That supposedly, and I don't know, and I watched the video, I couldn't hear a gunshot.
I couldn't hear a gunshot. I couldn't see the muzzle fire.
But
I couldn't see what they're trying to what they're trying to say.
That'll be easily provable or disprovable because he left his gun in the car.
Correct.
So they can look at the gun and tell whether or not he fired it. And I believe those.
Well, we can look at it.
Yeah,
he's dead.
Right. Well, yeah. And
so the thing is that and that's the issue, is that they'll be on administrative leave.
And that's why it's easy to do.
They'll be on administrative leave, and somehow, some way, it's likely they'll wiggle out of it some way, somehow.
They'll get a smack on the hand.
They'll go to the next town over and get a job. They get to still,
right.
They still get to have the barbecue for Memorial Day.
Right.
They still get to show up at their family's house for Thanksgiving and Christmas. They can watch their children grow old, grow up, and they can grow old.
Right.
But he doesn't. He doesn't get that opportunity.
This 25-year-old loses his life and all the potential that he had.
Mm-hmm. And never had a criminal past.
No.
Nothing.
No.
So like the whole deal that people tried to assassinate the character, say of a George Floyd or something like that. Right. They don't have that opportunity.
Right.
In this case.
And they're still going to victimize. They're still going to find a way to criminalize the victim. Because I've already heard it. He shouldn't have got out of his car and run.
Right.
But here's what this generation is faced with.
Mm-hmm.
People say, don't be scared of the police. Why not? They shot this boy 60 times. So there is a certain level of fear.
Sure.
When you are African American and you hear the sirens, you see the lights. There's a level of anxiety, period.
Correct.
Because there's too many people dying. And we can play and listen, you could play by the rules. You can, you know, you want to have a handgun, you can have a license like Philando Castile, and you'll still end up dead. Like, so, you know, again, when our generation talks about, you know, defund the police, like, I'm with it. Let's figure out other ways to spend our money to hopefully strengthen our communities where you don't need this gang in blue doing the kind of stuff that they're doing. And then then the oversight. Okay, so these 8 officers shoot a number of times, 90 total rounds, hit him 60 times. Now, you know, I don't know what kind of training you got that you can't see he's, you know, he's down.
I mean, this isn't Scarface. This dude is not, there's no way he's absorbing. There's no way he's just standing there and absorbing
all of these
rounds where it's like, man, he just won't go down. We got to keep firing.
Right. So all, you know, all of this, you know, and then we'll say as a community, we'll run to the, you know, to hold up our police system. Not all cops are bad.
Well, and not all cops are bad.
And I'm not saying they are.
You know, and as far as, you know, I would agree that they are a government sanctioned gang if you want to go that route. But at the same time, we do have to provide for peacekeeping. You know, we do have to have some organization that is tasked with keeping the peace. Somebody's got to do it. So you can call them the police, you can call them the polites. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, there is a peacekeeping organization that must exist in order to keep orderly society. Defund the police. Let's go ahead and talk about that. There's what the words actually mean, and then there's what most people mean when they say defund the police.
Right.
When you say defund the police, if you just look at the what these words mean in a sentence is that to take money away from the police, which I do not think is necessarily the way to go. I would advocate that we need to reform, reallocate the funds that we have and make sure it's going to the right elements of peacekeeping, which some of that may be counselors and mental health support and things of that nature, because policing should be more than guns and handcuffs. Right.
But that's what, okay. So,
but we can't do it if we don't properly fund it.
So here's the drawback of this generation. The reason why the phrase even came up, defund the police, because every time you say reform, what it means is more money.
Well, we don't need more money. We need to move the money around to the right places to get the best outcomes.
Even moving money around for a police structure means more money. Because you're going to move money around, you're going to take money from what? Just think about, if I could, I wish I had an example. If I show you a police budget in 1993 and a police budget in 2022, it's more.
It was always more. Well, I mean, you have to keep up with inflation. You have to keep up with salaries. You have to keep up with replacing equipment. So there are certain expenses that you just can't get around.
Right.
You need new cruisers every so often. Does that make sense?
Have you ever seen police drive these cruisers?
Yes.
You're going to need one every year. Like the way, but again, when you don't have to pay for it, I've seen them hit curbs, jump over curbs on GP, on general, like when it's not your money. And so, and then all of the other stuff that goes, man, I know before we even talking about salaries, and I think when people hear defund the police, that's the first thing they think, that somebody's talking about salaries. Nobody's talking about dropping, you know, police's salary. Now,
it's not salaries necessarily, but it's cutting how many. My biggest thing with defund the police is that you have to qualify it, because it doesn't make sense when you just say the words in a sentence. Because like, but I mean, does that make sense? Because defund the police means take money away from the police.
And I absolutely agree.
You know, but it's not feasible. Because to take money away, that means that either A, you're going to have to pay everybody less, or you're going to have less everybody's.
And okay.
Does that make sense?
So, and you just said policing needs it's the expansion. It's more than just guns and handcuffs.
Correct.
So,
but it's not less than that.
Okay. So to expand policing,
Mm-hmm.
gives them more responsibility.
Well,
Right.
I'm not saying that police officers have to do that. I'm not in favor of having police officers be a psychological Swiss Army knife.
Right.
Does that make sense? We
Right.
need other professionals to come into peacekeeping.
Then that would take it away from police. Okay, so their
Well,
responsibility.
not necessarily, because our police forces are becoming highly militarized, which I'm against. Does that make sense?
Right.
So sometimes we're spending money on equipment that they don't need.
And
Does that make sense?
And they will pitch to you every year. They need more. Let something
Well, everybody
happen.
does that.
During when the George Floyd thing happened.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see how police units showed up at some of these protests?
As far as like the riot gear,
Looking
type of
like
stuff?
the army.
Yeah.
And that's what.
That's what I'm saying, militarization. And that's a big problem. We got to have a clear line between peacekeeping officers and the military.
And we also need a clear line between peacekeeping officers and community asset. So I don't like mental health and all that should be out of the hands of the police officers. So they don't need more money. They need less. Most cities could afford at least a 25% budget decrease in their police officers so they can spend that money in other areas. And again, we can say, so first of all, my mindset, I don't think police officers stop any crimes. They're the first one on the scenes when the crime is over with. But I mean, it's debatable. But I grew up in Northeast Houston.
Right. Me too.
But
Sure.
they didn't, what was going to go down was going to go down.
I agree.
And when I see a cop even now,
But you got to take into account that before they show up, the idea that we have police is a deterrent to crime in the first place.
it is
It is.
too.
I know
grew
it's
up in Northeast Houston.
I know it seems that way. But what I'm saying is that people that might do something
Might not.
because there is a police force.
That's a lot of mites.
I get it. I get it. But come on, man. You know that there are certain people like, man, this person got crossways. I would kill him, but then I'm gonna be locked up for the rest of my life, or the state will kill me back. So they don't kill the person. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure we've all.
But if you made up your mind to do it,
Well, now if
no
you
police officer is gonna stop. That's something. So
correct.
I mean, look at our city. And again,
But
I
a
guess
police
that's why-
officer that pulls over a drunk driver, that gives that person a DUI and DWI and incarcerates them,
right?
and so then they take a drunk driver off the street, and then hopefully that person, seeing that they've been held accountable for breaking the law and experiencing the detriment to their life, that they had their license revoked and they had to pay all this
Right.
money, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
that they hopefully wouldn't do it again.
Right.
Right. So the very idea of having police around, that alone is a deterrent.
Okay.
Now I understand
Okay.
that, hey, look, I mean, if you got two people in a private home and something happens, they can't be everywhere, and we
Right.
don't want them to be everywhere all the time, but we want them to be available and be able to get there quick when something does happen.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So we can't task the police with being omniscient or task them with having a crystal ball to know when crime is going to happen,
Right.
and all of a sudden.
And I think sometimes it's sector too. So it's like any black, brown community in our city,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a high police presence
Mm-hmm.
where they're not in other communities.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, misdemeanor, small crime stuff they catch, especially in our neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
because they're on every corner.
Right.
But again, if we really felt like they stopped crime, we would spread them out. But it's not because we feel like
Well, no, you can't do that,
you
because
can't spread them out.
you can spread them out. But what I'm saying is that's like saying, okay, let's put all the fire departments, all right, for a given area.
Mhm.
And whenever there's a fire, let's send the fire trucks to everybody's house and sprinkle a little bit of water on everybody's house to stop the fire at one house. So you got to go to where the problem is the greatest. where the most crime is, you need the most police presence.
So you think crime is the greatest in black and brown communities, or they catch it more because that's where they are?
Well, I think number one, they're catching more because that's where they're paying attention.
Right. And that's where they're paying
attention. That's where they're there too.
That's where they're again, and that's my thing is like, we don't, so I grew up in Lakewood, Lakewood, Texas. Mesa Road, Homestead, Tidwell, Northway Side,
right.
So around the corner is a police precinct now on Lake Road. Right.
Okay.
And, that wasn't there when I was growing up, but we still had presence.
Sure.
But my thing is, you're going to catch the small stuff if all of y'all are over here. If I really felt like police was going to deter crime, they would be all over the city. Because if you're breaking a house in Lakewood.
Well, how do you know they're not all over the city?
Because I don't live in Lakewood anymore.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I live way out. You see, I live way out of the city.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
And I see them on patrol in my neighborhood and nothing happens.
Hey, I live in Cypress, and you're going to see one every now and then.
I mean, I see them.
We go see constables and sheriffs.
Yeah, because I'm out in the county, so it's a sheriff. It's a sheriff's office in Montgomery County.
Every now and then. Again, like, so these normal stops where people feel like they got to jump out of their car and run, they're happening in black and brown communities at a higher rate.
Well, no, they're happening in white communities, but those people don't die.
I mean, and that,
okay. You see what I'm saying? Okay. The problem is that somehow, some way, and we're gonna get to another shooting, this a mass shooting that happened also, but somehow, some way, if you have the complexion for the protection, you live, and if you don't, you die.
Okay.
To me, that's the issue. Is that why is it that we could almost, kind of like how it was in Training Day, we can recite what the newscaster is going to say.
Right.
Today, a black man, and you can finish the sentence, was killed, da, 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 da.
Right.
But then you could have a similar situation, and it'll say the perpetrator, a white male, such and such age, fill in the blank, was apprehended without incident.
Right.
So it's not that one race, another race, or another race, one commits more crimes or the other one doesn't commit more crimes. The question is, why is it that the police respond so differently
every encounter with us?
In every encounter, but based on your complexion, that determines whether you go home in bracelets or in a box.
Right. I'm to the point now, and again, I'm thinking that completely outside of the box, because I'm to the point now where I'm just tired of seeing young black men die.
Agreed.
And so,
agreed.
I believe policing itself, the system, the foundation of it, is so jacked up. There's no reform that'll fix it.
Well, I don't think there's going to be any reform until the millennial kingdom when Jesus comes back. So, I mean, so for me personally, biblically, but we got to figure out how to live until then.
Right.
Does that make sense? Until the rapture, we got to figure out, until Jesus takes us out of here, how are we going to live here in America? For those of us, that live in America, and maybe there's someone that's listening internationally, but we're talking about where we are, our context.
Right.
Is in the American South, specifically in the metropolitan area of Houston, Texas.
Right.
So, and especially in the American South, the roots of the institution of the police goes back to slave catching.
So we're just building on something that's broke, and everything. Like you build a great structure, but if the foundation is cracked, it's not going to stand.
And here's my deal: is that at the end of the day, the foundation is poured as people,
right?
And people, we're depraved. We're selfish. We get in our own little tribal groups.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
And so some of those things continue. So you could change the name, change the colors,
And it's
change the badges from
Right.
a star to a square. But at the end of the day, after you rename and recolor and rebrand and re all these different things,
Right.
at the end of the day, you got to put human beings
right. And
with all their faults
I mean,
in the position.
racism in individuals will never go away. I
Correct.
think what kills our culture is
The systematic.
there are systems of racism.
Right.
And policing is just one of those systems. Like and we're gonna move in because it's frustrating.
Correct. Yeah.
But no other place. There's no other place in our country except in Black and brown communities where a regular stop
Right.
requires 8 police officers.
Right.
Because you're here because you're not in the Woodlands. You're
Mhm.
here because you're not in, Cypress or
Mhm.
or Memorial,
Sugarland or I get it.
Yeah, I mean, and so you get a bunch of angry, frustrated police officers that don't get to shoot no other time but on the range, and now shoot this young black man
Mhm.
like he was a dog, and his family has to bury him. Can you imagine what it's gonna require?
Got to be a closed casket. I mean, it's got to be a closed casket.
60 rounds?
Yeah.
That just doesn't make sense.
Right.
And
It's excessive. It's excessive.
And we can say it's any other thing, and I know our culture, and we can say it's any other thing, and I know good cops are going to run today and then say not all of us are like that, whatever. But as a culture, here's where we are.
What are you doing? And here's my deal to the good cops. And I have friends that are police officers in various different departments. But here's my question. When you say that not all of us are like that, well, what are y'all doing about the bad ones?
The ones that are like that. Like, this can't be acceptable.
You see what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing
Right.
about the bad ones, the bad batch, if you will?
Right. Right.
Well, what are the good ones doing?
Yeah. This can't be acceptable. And so again, I'm so tired of saying it, but prayers go out to Jayland Walker's family.
No, I get it.
But not only prayers, man. We gotta, as a nation, man, we gotta figure something out.
Right. Well, human action ought to follow heavenly advice.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, thoughts and prayers being offered is great and grand. But at some point, once we're done praying, we've got to do something. And that local community is going to have to, in Akron, Ohio, is going to have to figure out a way forward. Because as you said, it's unacceptable,
Mm-hmm.
and it's excessive, and it keeps happening. That's why I said it's becoming an American tradition
Right.
to have, minorities gunned down, and then someone that is not a minority is in a similar situation, but they get to live.
They get to live. I will get to it. Every young black man that's listening, that may be watching, whatever. Hey, man, you get pulled over, keep your hand on the steering wheel, 10 and 2.
10 and 2.
And try to obey them as best as possible, and get home, and we'll fight it from there.
Yeah. Get to court.
Yeah,
You can't get to court fighting them on the street.
Because if you fight them on the street,
don't fight them on the street. Whatever happens,
rounds.
Whatever happens, you can fight it in court.
Yeah.
But we got to get to court.
This is beyond sickening, man. It's beyond sickening, and so
it's frustrating.
Yeah.
So that was a single shooting on behalf of the police, and I think that because that some people that have issues, maybe it's mentally, maybe it's emotionally, but I can't help but think that sometimes people are emboldened by what they see allowed by the police and by the government, that they go and inflict terror themselves.
Right.
So we got a situation in the Chicago area, Highland Park, where another mass shooting. A mass shooting is described. Now we define it as 4 people or more losing their lives. And so this particular individual just opened fire indiscriminately. Victims range from 8 to 85. I'm sorry, 88. 6 people lost their lives, including the parents Irina and Kevin McCarthy of a 2-year-old that now is an orphan. And this all happened at a July 4th
celebrating
parade,
the freedom of the country.
Celebrating the freedom of the country. We're, in the bondage of bullets raining down. And now the assailant here was Robert E. Crimo III. Okay, now somehow he left in bracelets instead of a box. Now he killed people.
Yeah.
Let me give you one guess as to the box he checked next to ethnicity.
Of course.
Yes, sir. And then, you guessed it. For those keeping score at home.
Right.
So how is it that Jayland Walker
runs a stop sign,
has a routine traffic stop, he goes home in a box, shot 60 times, but Bobby Crimo here murders people, also wounded others, wounded a couple dozen others besides the 6 that were killed. He didn't necessarily go home, but he's alive right now.
Right. And the sad thing, and I'm the release this morning was this was not his first time trying some event like this.
Wow.
And he was arrested before, and all he had on him then was knives, like 16 knives.
16 knives.
Yeah, but he was arrested. So again, like if someone tries,
he didn't work at Benihana, man. What do you need with 16? What do you need with 16 knives?
And then once we know that's your mindset, why aren't you on some radar?
Right.
So like again, if we're talking about protecting and serving being some, preventing things from happening, surely you got to know what this kid is and what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he's already shown that he, and again, and they stated the weapons that he used. Like as a country, we have to do something about
assault rifles,
some common sense laws around guns.
Yeah,
because again, this kind of thing is going to keep on happening until us as a country decide, hey, look, money is not as important as human lives. And so even though that's an industry that makes a lot of money, forget the money. We gotta preserve life. And so, I mean, we gotta do something. And then next thing you know, we'll be upset as a country when people stop going to public places and grocery stores and parades. And, we talk about our kids, especially in this state, the state of Texas. We'll talk about our kids and parents that don't want to send their kids to school.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't blame them because you're not going to protect them in school. You don't protect them at a parade. You won't protect them in a grocery store. So now if protection is left to, to me and me alone, yeah, in certain places I'm not going to go. And it's just sad. Now you got to live your life in fear.
In fear.
Of, somebody cut you off, you don't want to blow because what,
Right. They might blow back and not with the horn.
You feel anxious when your kids are at school. You don't feel protected in public places, at a movie theater and parades and the grocery store. It's like at a certain point for our country, enough ought to be enough. And we keep handling these events as if they were just isolated events.
Mm-hmm.
But they keep happening. They're stringing them together.
Right.
So a month ago we had Buffalo. Then we had Uvalde, Robb Elementary.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're talking about, Chicago. And all of this is in a matter of 1 month, 5 weeks?
Yeah.
At some point we got to do something.
I don't remember growing up as a child ever hearing about this type of stuff.
No.
In high school, I don't remember all this different stuff. And I was in high school during Columbine. That was the first time that had
Columbine was the
ever
first, right?
that had ever happened. Like that was a unique event at the time. Now, another day's paper.
Yep. And nothing big keeps happening after all of them.
Right, because every time it happens, now's not the time.
Yeah.
Now's not the time to talk about. Now watch this. We have laws on the books that aren't even being enforced.
Right.
Check this out. Cremo, who was the perpetrator in the Chicago area mass shooting, Cremo legally purchased 5 guns in all, rifles, pistols, despite having come to law enforcement's attention on 2 prior occasions for alleged behavior suggesting he might harm himself or others.
So after being a bleep on the radar
Twice,
he
still was able to purchase 5 guns, rifles and pistols. One of the firearms he used was a modified Smith & Wesson semi-automatic rifle similar to an AR-15.
I don't get it. And again, common sense laws would have just stopped him from being able to purchase those.
Well, here's the deal. The laws are on the books. Somebody is asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
Because in this case, the laws we have on the books should have, right, we have red flag laws.
Right.
But someone's asleep at the wheel.
Right.
Because how is it that the laws we have on our books, they're not being enforced?
Right. You can't, you can't go get, auto insurance if you've been cited for not having auto insurance before. You got to get an SR22 first.
SR22? Yeah.
So you can't go get auto insurance if you've been cited for not having auto insurance.
Mm-hmm.
But after coming to police knowledge of 2 prior incidents, you can go purchase 5 guns.
Mm-hmm.
Like what? Like,
well, I guess they're more concerned with how you shift an automatic transmission than an automatic rifle.
And this happens in no other country in the world.
Mm-mm.
No other country in the world. So again, I know we say it's not the right time. Tell the 2-year-old that now has to live without a mother or a father,
right,
that this is not the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, I'm tired of saying it. Prayers go out to victims and families of the victims and everyone that was affected. The 88-year-old who lived his whole life but lost it at a 4th of July parade. 64-year-old woman that had grandchildren and was living her life and happy to be there with her grandchildren is now the grandchildren are preparing a funeral. At some point, we just got to value human life. And I don't think we do enough to stop this money train that is guns and, ammunition. It's sickening and it's sad. And so, again, prayers and thoughts go out to the victims, especially that toddler who went to that who went to the parade with his mom and dad and came home, both of his parents dead. Man, it's crazy and it's sickening. So again, man, as a country, we need to do something. We need to take into consideration what's more important, what's worth preserving, and then do something to actually preserve human life. Because end of the day, money's gonna come and go.
Yeah.
Again, that's truth about that. You got 25-year-old Jayland Walker who has an encounter with police. He's dead. This nutcase in Chicago, and yes, I said nutcase in Chicago, goes and shoots innocent people that ain't did him nothing. In the words of my big mama, ain't done him nothing. And and he the next day he's still living, and in jail. We just got to do something as a as a country about
Right.
how we view certain things, especially when it comes to human life. So on a smaller community
Mm-hmm.
type, and again, I've been kind of looking at the video over and over again and reading some stuff, and I've been chomping at the bit because what was exposed or shown is, I believe, an epidemic in our generation and culture.
Okay.
So,
and we're moving on to a slightly lighter, a lighter topic.
Yeah, it's lighter, and I don't know that it's
just to frame it.
Yeah, it's lighter, but I don't.
It's lighter, but it's still serious.
Heavy.
It's still serious. I mean, obviously, no one's losing their life, is what I'm saying. There's no loss of life in this.
Right.
I just want to be clear for the audience that we're moving on from the topics of these shootings to but still serious.
Still serious.
But we wanted to talk about this last week, but we had our guest, Pastor Benton, and we wanted
which was a great time.
Which was a great time.
And thanks again, Pastor Benton, for coming.
Exactly.
Great time.
We appreciate you coming on.
So the video that I wanted to dig into was, there's this video that is surfacing, everywhere, of this mother of four who said at the top of the video she was going to expose her baby daddy for being trifling. Everybody think he's a good dad. I'm gonna show him up today. He's not a good dad. Young man pulls up, is excited about what he's about to do. You could tell he was in a good mood. He's like, "Hey, why you recording? I'm gonna expose you today.
I'm gonna expose you."
So he is bringing a McDonald's Happy Meal to his son. Burger, fries, drink. She's
High C orange.
Yeah, High C orange drink. And he the big one too.
Yeah, the big one. Yeah.
It was
large.
Yeah. So, and she's upset because he's bringing food to his son, but not to her other children, who she keeps saying those are your son's siblings, though. So
not his kids,
but his son's siblings. And so initially I was going to cut her a pass because she said in the video, I don't want him to eat that in front of them if I can't get them that.
Valid concern.
He answers that concern. Tell him to come out to the car so he's not eating in front of his siblings.
Yes.
And he can eat his food.
Compromise.
In the car.
There you go.
Thinking it's over.
Hey, I thought that was going to be it.
She said, you didn't buy nothing for my other kids. That's not enough food for, my other kids, whatever. He has a lot of questions. One, he's like,
yes,
where are their daddies?
And why didn't you feed them?
Why didn't you feed them? She, never answered the where are their daddies. And then why you didn't feed them, I don't get my stamps until
the 7th.
And then later in the video, she said the 11th. I don't think she knows.
Oh, wow. Oh, she don't know that.
I don't think she knows when the baby don't know.
The first time she said the 7th.
Yeah, the first time she said the 7th. Then I think she said the 11th later, whatever.
Okay.
Whatever. So now here's the fight. Here's the contentious moment.
Yeah.
Because you're bringing food for your child, but not my children. Even though my children is not your responsibility.
And let's be clear, they are no longer together.
They're no longer together.
They are separated. They're co-parenting their one child together.
Right.
They're not cohabitating.
Anything like that. So before you get your commentary, so she does a
go ahead. Yeah.
No, she does another video later.
Yes.
Where she kind of doubles down on her position.
Seen that.
And she says, well, when we were together, he was doing it. He was feeding all the kids. So now my other kids have to make some transition of mindset from when he was doing it when we were together. I don't know why they're not together. Which
the video does not say.
Doesn't say. Right. That's neither here nor there.
Correct.
But you got to know his responsibilities now have changed because, you take on that responsibility. It's me and you and your kids. I got that. But now that we're not together, now I got to pay to pursue whatever other relationship he's going to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
Still take care of his responsibility with his child.
Correct.
So now I can't absorb your responsibility as a parent to feed your own
And that
kids
child's father.
and their fathers.
His responsibility.
Right. So there was a lot of split.
Yeah, a lot of that.
So some people were saying that she was right. Some people were saying that he was wrong for doing that, whatever. So again, how you view it, was she right? Because ultimately in the video, I'll go back, ultimately in the video, he can't eat it. He can't eat it in front of other kids. She takes it from him and she throws it in the street.
After saying that, okay, I'll take it to him. So she agrees under false pretenses that, okay, just give me the food and I'll take it to him.
Right.
And then once she has possession of said food and drink,
she throws it.
She wastes it and throws it on the sidewalk.
Right.
So now
nobody eats anything. Right.
Money's wasted, food and drink is wasted, and all we got out of it was an opportunity
to
talk about this dynamic. So let me give you this. I'll say this. Then I'll let you sprinkle your good Sean on it. She showed what I feel like is an epidemic in our culture, that sense of entitlement. Like somebody owes entitlement.
You something.
Yes, sir.
Nobody like it's now if he would have did it, it would have been a great gesture.
Yes.
But he's not responsible for doing it.
Correct.
And seeing how she responded, I see why he doesn't do it.
Correct.
Because it's not like you would have said,
oh, thanks for doing it. You're supposed to do it. In her mind, he's supposed to do it.
So the responsibility of feeding her kids in that video she showed, it's on
the government,
one of the baby daddies, or her food stamps.
Right, the government.
Yeah.
The taxpayers.
Right. But not me.
Not her.
To feed my own self kids.
Right.
And again, it was hard for me to even just kind of, because I'm trying to give her a pass,
no pass.
Single parent, whatever. But it's the mindset for me just did it. Like, you going to come in here with one bag of food, I got other kids. What does that have to do with anything? You probably, I could hear my grandmother say it, you want sugar, you ask for it.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, hey, since you're going by McDonald's, can you please get everybody something? Just spot me whenever I get it.
Sure.
I'll take care of it. He seemed like the kind of dude
that if he had it,
if he could have did it, he would have did it.
Yes, I agree.
But when you come at me like I'm supposed to, because you decided to have kids with different dudes, and just because my son has siblings, now I got to take care of the siblings too?
Now watch this. The justification is that their child of the 4 is the youngest.
Right.
When she did the double down video,
you knew I had kids.
You knew I had kids.
What's that have to do with anything?
I don't know what that has to do with the price of tea in China. They have nothing to do with each other. But no, you took the words right out of my mouth. The word of the day on this video is entitlement.
Yeah.
How they do it on Sesame Street? E is for entitlement. And so I sympathize with the situation in the sense of, hey, you can just tell just by some of the surroundings that, hey, we're not dealing with, wealth and affluence, in terms of the dynamic. You can tell that obviously you have the stresses of dealing with mixed family structure,
families, right,
mixed, merged,
right.
And that creates a lot of complications.
It does.
Not that it can't be navigated.
I've seen it navigated, so we know it.
Correct, it can be. And so, but there are these complications that these wrinkles that have to be ironed out.
Right.
And it requires that everyone come together for the good of the children. But I'm going to go ahead and dub this man the McDonald's Poppy. Okay. You got Drake, he's Champagne Poppy. This is McDonald's Poppy. And so McDonald's Poppy is wanting to take care of his responsibility, his biological child.
Right.
And that is his responsibility.
Right.
His job is to provide for his child.
Right.
Now, the other children, before he's asked to provide for them, where are their fathers?
Right. Right.
And now maybe they need to get a little group chat together and figure out, okay, this week,
Right. I got this. Then next week,
Daddy
you take
one,
back
then
that.
Daddy
Right.
two, Daddy
Right.
three, Daddy four,
Right.
whatever, and then they can just rotate it, right?
See, if we're gonna co-parent,
If we're going to co-parent, we got to navigate these things. We
Right.
got to figure it out.
Right.
But to hold this man responsible for all of her children
right.
when he only had an active role in creating one child with her
Right.
is absurd. Now, again, it would be a nice gesture if he was able, and that's not going to, create a tremendous burden. Hey, man,
Yeah.
3 more Happy Meals,
Ain't
call it a
gonna
day.
kill me. But
Right.
there wouldn't have been the gratitude that
And that's the problem. That's why the word of the day for this
Yeah.
particular story is entitlement,
Right.
is because the mother of the children felt like she was owed.
right.
And maybe that's the best baby daddy she got.
Right. Right.
And so maybe it's like, hey, I gotta get water where there's a well.
Right. Right.
So
Absolutely.
this is, so that's the situation. But there's no, because I would venture to say this is that when you're talking about a transition period, I don't think there was a transition period on how they interacted with each other physically.
Right.
I bet you that stopped cold.
Right.
But you want a transition period for the man and his resources.
Right.
But there's no transition period for the woman and her resources.
And one of the most
And that sounds harsh,
but it's true.
but it's true.
And here's the most damning thing in the video that frustrated me. Because now you have a mother who has this I'm owed, entitled something mentality,
Mm-hmm.
raising 4 children.
4 children.
So what do you think those children are going to grow up to be? They're going to
Just-
grow up and
just
have
like
that
her.
same type of mindset that someone owes me something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not, that's just not a good.
And she was more concerned with trying to get to the moral high ground and somehow tip the power dynamics in their relationship in her favor than actually taking care of the biological needs of her child. She was more concerned with being right than doing right.
That thing, that's heavy. And the mindset went so far, if you're not going to give me all that I expect from you,
You're dead to me.
I don't want nothing.
I don't want nothing.
So instead of you being a mother,
Mm-hmm.
taking this food, bowing your head, saying grace, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, if he's paying child support, he didn't even have to do that.
Right. Because he's already paid you to provide for his child.
Right.
He
right.
comes with over and above extra
above.
a treat. This was
Hey,
likely to be a treat.
let me take this one sandwich,
Mm-hmm.
explain to the son,
Mm-hmm.
hey, mama wants you to share with your brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a life lesson. Like, we're family, we're going to put
Right.
together women. We're going to bust this sandwich down in folds,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to eat.
Right.
It ain't as much as we want,
Right.
but it's at least
But
something.
it's something.
You take it and throw it away.
Right.
So that mindset is, I'm so entitled.
Right.
If I don't get what I think I deserve
Mm-hmm.
or what's coming to me, what's owed, then I don't want anything.
Right.
That's just a dangerous place to be.
Mm-hmm.
So no wonder then this generation of entitled mindsets, uneducated, and refuse to take a job that we feel like is less than
Mm-hmm.
where we are. Because if we can't get a job where we can drive a Bentley,
Mm-hmm.
we don't want nothing.
Funny thing, this morning as I was getting ready, I was watching an old episode of Martin. And it was an episode where Martin lost his job
Mhm.
and he had to go to the unemployment line. And he gets greeted by someone that he knows. And she says, hey, we got these options. And he's like, oh, I can't do that. you know?
Right.
And she's like, oh, well, you're looking for, you know, a job that has an expense account and a car allowance and this and that and da da da. You know, and he's like, oh, yeah, now you're talking.
Run me one of them.
Right. We don't have those here. You know? And so, you know, he had to come to grips with, hey, look, I mean, if you could command that on your own, you wouldn't be here.
Absolutely.
Because the whole point, he dreaded it. He told Gina, he said, it's got to be the worst possible situation for me to go to the unemployment line. You know, because she's saying, hey, you know, maybe you should go to the unemployment office, no, I got other things. So finally, after he exhausts all those other prospects, he finally humbles himself and goes to the unemployment line. But then he still is entitled, thinking he's going to get something similar to what he came from.
And you could be just there to work your way back to
way back to it, right?
And here's, if young people, if you hear nothing else, and I say it all the time at the church and at home with them, hear nothing else I say. Sometimes you're in certain seasons of your life, and God is trying to see how hard you'll go.
Yeah.
You know, so look, man, always had an attitude of gratitude, because no matter where you are, it could be worse.
Yes.
You know, so instead of grumbling about Pastor Campbell, you say it all the time, and in this video it makes sense. Mm-hmm. You're complaining with a loaf of bread under your arm.
Exactly.
You were given, they're hungry, mm-hmm. you were given some food.
Right.
But it wasn't the quantity or quality of food you wanted.
Right.
So instead of making do, being grateful, you grumble and throw it away.
Yeah.
It's just not a good mindset. So I know she doubled down on it, but you know, for me, that hope, and I feel sorry for those kids. I hope they have some other adults in their lives that'll mm-hmm. you know, try to mold their little minds into, you know, something. But that kind of mindset, that entitled, that I'm owed something, mm-hmm. it's killing our generation.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's killing us. And so, and then, you know, honestly, you know, kudos to the dad.
Yeah. You know, I got to give him credit because he could have went off.
Right.
But I think he demonstrated restraint. I mean, obviously he was visually frustrated.
Right.
But he was trying to reason with her.
Right.
And saying, hey, I understand you don't want him to eat in front of his siblings, mm-hmm. but let him come out to the car and he can eat with me. To me, seems to be a perfectly valid compromise.
Hey.
You know?
You know?
And you know, so I think he demonstrated restraint, and he tried to, you know, stay on the high road and tried to de-escalate the situation, because she came out on 10. I'm going to expose you. And you know, I wish she had that. Exactly. And wish she had that same energy in terms of, I'm going to take care of my kids. That should be the motivation.
Right.
You know, and so it's like, here comes, you know, the child's father that's trying to be a good co-parent, and you meet him with disdain and disgust.
Right.
You know, right. And so, you know, I hope things work out. I hope that she learns from the situation. I hope that he is not bitter, and that he'll continue to try to work with her for the sake of the children.
Right. 'Cause believe it or not, your son needs you greatly now, because you know you got to make sure he doesn't see enough of that where it, you know, it influences his mindset. So yeah, kudos to the dad for trying to do over and above. And then you know, again, for this generation, let this be a lesson to all of us to you know, no matter where we are, appreciate where we are. You know, be grateful.
Attitude of gratitude. Right? Yes, sir.
Yeah, no one owes us anything. So before we get out, do want to see that, you know, or say something about my girl. She's always been my girl. I've always liked her. But I think, you know, well, a lot of people believe she was too honest, maybe too brutally honest in this situation. So my girl Macy Gray does an interview.
Mm-hmm. Piers Morgan.
Yeah.
Is the host. Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Yeah. And uncensored. So maybe she just felt comfortable just speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, the show's named Uncensored. So
right. So he asked her, "What is a you know, a woman to you?" and it killed her first response is kill me dead. So she said a human with breasts, and she was trying to make some other point. So she goes deeper into it, and the conversation it gets to whether or not she sees transgender as women. But she did say, of which I appreciate, she did say, if you want to be called a she or her, I will call you that because that's what you want to be called.
Right.
But I don't see you as that.
It doesn't make you, and this is the exact quote, if you want me to call you a her, I will, because that's what you want. But that doesn't make you a woman just because I call you a her and just because you got a surgery.
Yeah.
Macy Gray.
Yeah. So she's being run through the mud.
Oh yeah.
And,
Oh yeah.
So what do you? I mean, what do you feel? And then again, I believe in the freedom of speech. So she was well in her right to respond however she deemed
correct.
Response. And I don't think just because she said that means and I've even read some responses that doesn't mean she wants violence enacted.
Correct.
On.
And this is where people come with the fake outrage and try to label her as transphobic, which means that she's afraid of trans people. That's not the case. Right. She made a fact-based claim that, and this is a quote again from Macy Gray. I will say this, and everybody's going to hate me, but as a woman, just because you go change your parts doesn't make you a woman. Sorry. Does that make sense? So you can't take a Pontiac Fiero and just because you put a body kit on it, call it a Ferrari.
Yeah.
In automotive, we call this kit cars, where you just have interchangeable parts, but they're considered kit cars, not an OEM, original equipment manufacturer. So you cannot paint the body style, shape the body style, but then slap the Ferrari emblem on the hood and think it's going to sell for a Ferrari price. It's not a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Even though you change the body kit, even though you change the engine, even though you change the seats, and even though you tried to put the emblem of Ferrari on it, if it's a 1987 Pontiac Fiero, and this is like a thing, that this old car kind of halfway, if you squint and look out the side of your eye,
turn your head to the left.
It could look like a Ferrari. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so people will buy body kits and they'll do all kinds of upgrades to make it look and sound like a Ferrari. And Macy Gray is just stating the obvious fact that you can change your parts, but that doesn't make you the original equipment manufacturer.
Right. And she went into some other things because
it's not the same product. I'm sorry. It doesn't make you the same product.
Right.
Yeah.
She went into some other things because I think they started talking about, competing.
Yeah. Sports competition, trans. And so she says, though she said she shared Morgan's stance on supporting trans rights for fairness and equality, she also agreed with his view that that women born to obvious superior physical bodies should be prohibited from competing against cis women in sports. So the position that Piers Morgan and Macy Gray takes is that there should be a separate category for transgender athletes to compete in, because it's not fair for a man that tries to make himself a woman to compete with a natural born woman. I mean, imagine if LeBron James had gender reassignment surgery at 6'8" and 260 pounds. I mean, if he went to the WNBA, he'd score 237 points a game.
Right. And then it's not.
I mean, who's picking him up?
Right. And so here's my thing, and I don't want anybody to get mad. I believe that we should be fair and reasonable, whatever, to everyone.
Sure, 100%.
But sports competition, that's not fair.
Right. It's not fair.
So it's the same thing that you're fighting for because it benefits.
You want to be treated equally,
right? Now,
but you don't want to be treated equally,
right? Right. So you kill your argument,
right?
When what you're fighting for, you're fighting against. So
Correct.
it's almost like you're just trying to tilt the scales to favor you in every scenario of life. Now again, and that, you know, and I can see the emails coming. I'm not saying anything about, you know, anything, but again, as a culture, just as a culture, we can't say we want things all fair and equal, except when I'm at the disadvantage.
Correct.
Now we don't want it fair, you know.
Right.
We just gotta.
I find it interesting that it's always trans women.
Right.
I've not seen any instance of where a trans man attempts to play in the male to compete as a male. That means a biologically born woman, you know, that wants to change herself into a man and change the parts and have male parts and go and compete in the male sports.
Because you're a bit at a disadvantage.
Correct, you'd be at a disadvantage.
But when the scales are changing, you want to be at the, and again,
which is why it's always the trans women that are lifted up. You know, the swimmer, you know, and the NCAA deal. You know, I mean, if we're gonna go down that road, then just like in automotive, they have different races. They have Group A, Group B, Group C, different races for different types of cars. Right. You know, so it's like, hey, the car can't weigh less than this or more than this. It can't have more or less than this horsepower. Everybody has to compete on an even playing field, right? So then maybe there should be a new category created for transgender athletes. Right. But the problem is that doesn't give them a win culturally. In the cultural conversation, that doesn't give them a win.
Right.
Because this is the part that I don't see how they don't see this. They want to argue that they are a woman, but then you also have people in the same camp that argue that there are no sexes, that there are no genders, or that you can be fluid between them at the same time. Right. So which is it?
Right. Is it reassignment? Or is it there are none? Right.
Which is it? But, you know, this is where in the cultural conversation, there are certain groups that want to have their cake and eat it too.
Right. And you don't have to agree with Macy Gray to respect her freedom to say it. And again, I don't want to get in. Look, I'll have to tell you that when we get off the air.
Yeah.
I got a story, whatever. And a dude said the N-word. Like he was mad, whatever. He wasn't talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know. He's
in your presence.
Yeah. Well, no, he was in our presence, but he was speaking to, you know, the guy behind the counter.
Mm-hmm.
And he called him the N-word. You know, of course, you know, whatever, but he does it and he flips out. And I told him, you know, the dudes, like, because, you know, I go in there all the time. So I told him, man, chill out, calm down. I don't have to agree with you.
Right.
To respect your freedom of speech to say it.
Right.
Now, you're free to say it.
But you're not free from the consequences.
And I'm free to respond.
Right.
However I deem necessary.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when somebody's helping you up, don't say nothing because, you know, you were free to say it. Again, I don't have to, you know, respect or agree with you to just respect your freedom to say it.
Correct.
Macy Gray said whatever she said, you know. We live in what's considered to be cancel culture, and people start shooting at her, whatever. I don't have to agree with her to respect the right to say it.
Right.
She deems a woman to be this, and to her, that's what it is. And like, just because she doesn't, or you know, and she said, hey, you want to be called a she or her? I'll call you that. But that don't mean that's how I view you.
Right.
And I don't think that's as disrespectful if they're trying to make.
I don't see why this is really newsworthy.
Yeah.
But the sad part is that it's newsworthy because it's newsworthy.
Right.
The reason we're talking about it is because we have to talk about it.
Right.
But to say that, hey, I mean, how is this groundbreaking news?
Right.
That a woman is a biological female. I don't understand why that. And I just made is a controversial statement.
Right.
Which is sad because it's just a fact in reality.
Right.
But yet to say that, hey, a woman is an adult biological female.
Right. 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 And,
People-
I don't think she should be vilified for
She shouldn't be vilified for that,
for
because they
saying
sure
that.
are not vilifying people that want to change
Right.
the definition, and they have no basis in fact or reality.
Right.
But yet that doesn't mean that we don't respect you. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be treated the same in terms of civil liberties or all that different
or
stuff.
That I want any violence enacted
right.
on you.
That doesn't mean.
And that's what I read this morning. I was like, so she's purporting violence? And I thought about it.
Yeah.
That's the same thing they said or others said about comedian. What's my boy name?
Which one? Dave Chappelle?
Dave Chappelle.
My guy.
You know, Dave Chappelle made some comments about transgenders, and they were like, well, he's supporting violence against transgenders.
No, he's not.
No, I mean, he said what he said. You don't have to agree with him to respect his right to say it.
Correct.
But not once did he say, I want a group of people to be, have to experience violence. Again, I just think sometimes we take stuff that's on 5 and we turn it on 10. Hey, was Macy Gray right or wrong? I don't know. Who cares? But I respect her opinion. And obviously,
right,
Morgan does, because he asked her.
He asked her, and she agreed with his. He stated his position, because just because somebody disagrees with you doesn't mean that they hate you.
Right.
But we're so sensitive,
right,
that if you don't accept and affirm me 100%, then you're evil,
right,
and you want to do harm to me. And that's just not the case.
And that's not. I can't remember who said it, but somebody said we would rather be killed by compliments than built by criticism.
Sounds like America.
It's just, hey, that's how she views it. And because it's so gray, and here's another thing that I think we don't want to admit, because the area is so gray, people have different views.
Right.
There are certain things that we can't have multiple views on.
Right.
Because they're in hard black and white.
Right.
But because that area is so gray, people have different views. And we're going to have different views because...
And my deal is that it never serves any community to always be the victim.
Right.
That doesn't serve advancing.
Because then you start accepting this victim mindset.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the things that's killing us. We accept, the victim mindset, always trying to build yourself to be the victim, entitlement. We're owed something with, like all of those
and there's
mindsets.
It's the entitlement, the deal with the McDonald's baby mom, baby daddy, and this, they kind of have a tie.
Yeah.
Because there's a sense of entitlement that I should be able to go through life and never be offended.
Right.
That the universe should coalesce around itself for my desires.
Right. Even when I push that envelope, because the reason why, and people say what they want to, the reason why it's so different, because it's so different. Like you know what I'm saying? Like 20 years ago, were there transgenders? Yes.
Well, I don't think there was a lot of
it wasn't a lot of
it wasn't a lot, because when you talk about transgender and you're talking about, mutilation of the body, gender reassignment, hormone treatment, all
people
these
didn't
different
have
things.
the kind of money for it. Now that it's we're generations later, there are other ways to do it. It's a little more prevalent, so you see it a lot more, but it's different. You got to allow people room to get used to things. If we're trying to go along, that's almost like, so I read some crazy comment about the Lizzo thing, whatever. Like, when her changing the lyrics, whatever. Years ago, somebody wouldn't say, like, years ago there wasn't Twitter for you to say what you're saying.
Right. There wasn't a platform. Correct.
Give people room
to
just
process.
because you are a certain place doesn't mean everybody's going to be there.
Right.
Doesn't mean they're not going to ultimately get there.
Right.
But you got to leave people room to grow and change and, and all of that. And so I mean, what she said was, people like, oh, that's insensitive. Well, 20 years ago, it wasn't a topic.
Yeah.
It wasn't up for discussion. She feels how she feels. She has the right to feel that way. She has the right to voice how she feels. And it kind of is what it is.
To me, what's insensitive is whenever you try
I don't think it was disrespectful.
I don't think so at all. And she even goes on to say, I got, this is me quoting Macy Gray, I got nothing but love for LGBT plus and transgender communities. I've been a supporter since day one and never a fake one. My statement on Piers Morgan was grossly misunderstood. I respect everyone's right to be whomever they want to be. That was, she tweeted that July 5th. So yesterday.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think she really feels like that. We just got to do better as a society on, how we
Mm-hmm.
put, and just because somebody says something that you feels like it doesn't make that person a bad person. Like some of the stuff that people are saying online about Macy Gray right now is crazy.
Yeah. To me, what's more insensitive is that you try to climb into her mindset and try to make it seem that she said something that she didn't say.
Right.
To me, that's insensitive.
Right.
Because you're trying to hijack
her words. Right.
her words and you're trying to place intent on the content that is not there.
Right.
So because someone's sensitive about, oh, you're saying something against my team or my tribe, that it's got to be taken over and above and beyond to something that it is not. Right. Instead of engaging in conversation and saying, well, hey, I understand you feel this way. Well, here's how we feel.
Right.
But that's too much. That's too much like, it's too much.
Right. She said something about us. Okay. Posse up. Everybody, and people are saying, well, it's a cancel culture. I don't think so. But I even stuff like this, where now you want to attack everything. Let's just say she had bad intent. Mm-hmm. Let's just say she did. Mm-hmm. She didn't. I don't believe she did.
I don't believe she did. I don't think there's anything that supports that she had.
How does that change who she is as an artist?
Right.
And like for people to attack her as an artist because she feels another way as a human, to me, it's just crazy.
Right.
It's just, But again, we live in that generation, and these are the same people that will run down Macy Gray for having an opinion, but will listen to R. Kelly, who's a menace to society. So, go figure. Go figure.
Yep.
Anyway, you any other highlighted things that we need to keep our eyes and ears open for this week?
No, not by the time that this episode airs, but I will say this, even though most likely you'll be listening to this after the fact, to have continued prayer for the physical family and the church family of Reverend Mouton.
Oh, yeah.
This Friday, the 8th, his services, Celebration of Life, will be held at the Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. And so, of course, not just for that day, but for ongoing, because there's a family that's missing a man that was a father and a brother and a son, and a church family that's lost their pastor, and a tragic loss of life. So, just prayers for the family and the church family.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll definitely lift the Mouton family up in prayer, and the East Bethel family up in prayer as well. Pastor Mouton's life was senselessly cut short at the end of a gun, and again, as a culture, we gotta figure out something as it relates to gun violence and reforming laws about guns. So again, prayers to that family. I definitely have plans on being there to celebrate the life of who was a stalwart in our community. Pastor Mouton was a very, very, very delightful man to be around. Always was looking out for the good of others. Great dude, cool guy, and he'll definitely be missed. And so my prayer is that his legacy lives on, and definitely through the life of that church and his family. And so again, pray for that family. Although the people that have been affected by his life being cut short. Again, I don't have anything, but some things are coming. Summer months, so some things are coming, and so we'll keep you guys abreast to some community events that the summer will bring. And so let's keep our kids covered in prayer. Not everyone means them any good, and there's a lot of violence and stuff going on in our community. So let's keep our young people covered in prayer.
Yes.
So until next week or the next time we get to see each other, please promote the channel. If you're watching on or listening to rather on Apple Podcasts, share it with a friend. If you're listening or watching on YouTube, share it, like it, subscribe, so that we can expand not just our viewership, but expand thoughts around certain things for our culture. We can fix where we are when we can face where we are. And so let's speak some truth to where we are, so we'll have a good perspective of where we are, and then we'll have a good perspective of where we need to go. So, Sean, you have anything else?
No, man.
There's nothing else. Until next week, grace and peace, and we'll see you guys on next week.